You're listening to the Mental Money Podcast, the show that shows you how to master your mind to maximize your money. This show is for people who love to watch their bank accounts grow while shifting their relationship to money. Without further ado, let's get these insider insights from today's leading expert. Finally, the long-awaited grant funding episode. So my goal with this episode was for you to find insight into how to find funding and what you need to secure funding. We'll also go over the top funding opportunities for newer businesses. So before we begin, let's get one housekeeping factor out of the way. I think it's extremely important for you to know this. I can't possibly cover every single funding source in one episode. There's a lot that goes into funding. Even when you niche down to just grants, there's a lot of information. I'll be sharing what I think you need to know as a newer business or if you're thinking about starting a business. This information is going to be helpful either way. For those of you that are new, my name is Nathalie and I'm the proud host of the Mental Money Podcast. For those of you that are family, thank you for coming back. Outside of being the host of this podcast, I'm a finance entrepreneur that focuses on strategy and profitability. I own 2 companies, and I also work with minority women in business when they are new to business as a consultant or as a fractional CFO. As the CFO of both my companies, it is my number one goal to ensure that the companies are operating at their fullest financial capacity. That means making sure that our business and personal credit is up to par, as well as monthly budgeting and bookkeeping. So in addition to being responsible for strategically finding ways for us to be profitable, I need to make sure that we're funded. That's where the grants come in. As of today, November 20th, 2022, I've successfully secured $239,000 in grant funding. That does not include loans or net profit from client sales. That is money we qualified for because we were properly structured and positioned to be awarded. This episode will go over exactly how you can do something similar or get really close. So let's talk about what a grant is. Again, just for the sake of what you need to know, a grant is essentially money you don't have to pay back. I want to make it sure that even though you do not have to pay it back, that doesn't mean that it's really free. Depending on the type of grant that you apply for is what you'll do with the funds. In most cases, the organizations awarding the grant will ask for proof of what you did with the funds. So again, it's not money to do what you want to do or go on vacation. It's money set aside to help businesses in a specific way that does not have to be paid back. There are organizations that are incentivized to give away free money to businesses on an annual basis. So there's always free money floating around, but you just have to know where to look. So here are a few ways that grants can be used. Grants can be used for business development. They can also be used for working capital. They can be used for growth. I've also seen grants for workforce training. These workforce training grants are actually really interesting because they're giving money away for you to train employees or hire new employees that need to be trained so that your business functions more efficiently. And some workforce training grants will even pay you in addition to the training that they need to do. They'll pay you for the training hours that the employee has to undergo so you can not have to worry about paying that employee additional funds in addition to the work that they'll be doing. They've also offered grants for facility upgrades. So let's say you have a warehouse or some kind of facility like that, for example, or maybe like a medical center. They could offer you grants in order to improve on or upgrade those facilities. You can also use funds to cover things like operating costs, product or service improvement, buying equipment, or building your company website or even marketing. The possibilities are really endless. It just really depends what those funds are set aside for. So I'm going to reiterate again, nothing's really free, right? So there are minimum requirements that you have to meet in order to qualify for grants. Some grants require that you're in business for X amount of time. Some require that you have a certificate of good standing in your state and or with the Department of Revenue in your state. Some require that you're licensed or have a business bank account that is used explicitly for business transactions. At the bare minimum, you should have a business address, phone number, website, your incorporation documents. Some grants will even ask for financials. That means like your profit and loss statement or your balance sheet. If you have these in place, you're already 50% of the way ready to begin applying for grants today. The other 50% depends on what kind of grants are available, right? So you're not going to find a grant that's available every single time you go to apply. But if they're available, then that's half the battle too, right? Another part of that 50% is also knowing your business well, because they're going to be asking you questions about your business, what you need the funding for, how much you've made. So depending on how well you know your business, that can also be part of that additional 50% that will get you prepared to apply for grants today. Can you articulate what your business does and how it serves your community? They want to know that because they want to know who they're funding, and they want to make sure that you're actually a viable business that will be able to be sustainable. Let's say that you never get funding again. They want to be able to know that you're a viable company. And last but not least, in some cases, they will ask for you to write a successful proposal. If one is requested of you, are you able to do that? And all of that information will be captured in that additional 50%. Positioning yourself and making sure that you know how to do these things will help you get more funding. Not necessarily exclude you, but it will get you more funding. So in the next section, I'm just gonna go over a little bit more detail about how to actually get a little bit more leverage on that 50% that you might be missing. Let's say you're most of the way ready for grants. Here are a few additional things that you should know based on the people who I know listen to the show and where you might be in your business. Number one, an award of the amount of money being granted to you. So the award is the actual dollar amount that you will be received. That's what they call it. They call it an award. Funding or award are some other words that might be used interchangeably, but in the space that I've been in for the most part, I've always heard it as an award. So the award is the amount of money being granted to you, and you should definitely know that award amount. Look for the award amount when you're applying. I say this because people will not use the funds for what they're supposed to use the funds for and have to pay all that money back. So make sure this is an award amount you're willing to be responsible for in the instance that you're pursued for it. Also, if they don't ask for the money back, in some cases they might not, there's a good chance you'll be blacklisted with the company and you won't be able to apply again. And trust me, you don't want this. So just know the award amount, know what the funds can actually be used for, and make sure that this is an award amount that you are comfortable paying back in the instance that they said that you did not meet the minimum requirements for how the funds should have been used. Number two, before you apply for a grant, determine if they are expecting a match from you. Some grants will say that they'll give you $30K, but request that you match up to a percentage of the total value of the grant that they're giving you. This percentage could go up to 100% of the grant award. If you do not have the funds to meet the award threshold, I would hold off on applying on those kinds of grants for now. But that's definitely something that you should look at during the application process. Number three, one big mistake I see often is people not looking at the grant type. A lot of grants have stringent requirements. Make sure you meet all of those requirements. In our case, we want grants that cater to for-profit businesses. So, for example, if the grant is set aside for a nonprofit organization that doesn't pertain to you, do not apply. This should go without saying, but I've seen people do this. No matter how good your idea is, if they don't fund for-profit businesses, you do not qualify. Which leads me to my next point. There are a lot of grants for minority businesses. Apply to them where they are appropriate, but also applies to ones that are not for minority businesses. Don't pigeonhole yourself just to minority grants. If you meet the criteria for a grant any business can apply for, independent of your social standing, apply. Number four is super important. There are grants that require you submit a proposal in order to be awarded. This is not the same as the application. In most cases, this is an addition to the application. For example, the 20K growth grant we're launching at the end of the year will have a proposal requirement because our sponsors require that we vet the companies we're giving the funds to. In a lot of cases, you will come across this. Even if the grant that you're applying for doesn't require a proposal, I think just going through the process will be a good exercise. It will help you build your brand story. You can articulate what you'll need the funds for, and there are a lot of other details that awarders want to know. I have information on how to get yourself a winning proposal at the end of the episode. Number five, grant funds are not guaranteed money. You have to put in a lot of applications before you get funded. I say this to manage your expectations. This is a good time to really accept the idea of the 80-20 rule, except that 80% of the work that you do will only yield 20% of the results in this case. I've owned Commons Care for 5 years as of September 2022, and majority of our funding came in year 3 and 5. Had I quit in year 1 and 2 with no result, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you. I'm not telling you it's going to take you that long. I'm sharing information with you that I didn't have then in hopes that it will streamline the process for you. However, you can't give up. If you don't win, ask why, what was missing, and then adjust for the next time. As a business owner, you need to remember that you're the captain of your own ship. You eat what you kill, so you can't stop hunting. Okay, so let's talk about where you actually look for grants. Since you are a new business, in my professional opinion, I don't think it's worth your time to chase federal government grants just yet. But if you want to, please feel free to look into them. I say this because those grants are usually very involved, and if you're new to business, you may not have a solid proof of concept yet, or your business will likely morph into something that you didn't start out doing. Establish yourself a little bit more and you can revisit it once you actually have a solid proof of concept. I know people usually like list off their things from greatest to least, but I'm going to go least to greatest. And I'll explain a little bit why. So, the first place a lot of people like to look for grants are sites like Hello Alice. That's hello, like saying hi, and then Alice, like the name ALICE. They share grant opportunities regularly, and a lot of grantors place their grants on Hello Alice because it's really popular. This is one place to look, and it's worth signing up on just to kind of see what's out there and what people are really funding right now. But I haven't personally been awarded from any grants on the Hello Alice site, but I have clients who have been successful, so it might be worth a look. The second place that offers a lot of promise to businesses and niche businesses are associations. Other than networking opportunities they offer, being part of these organizations gives you an opportunity to apply for grants that are offered to members. A popular one is the National Association for the Self-Employed, or NASC. They have a $4,000 grant that they offer to members. It would not hurt to join as many associations as you can, especially if they are specific to your market. I would say that maybe before you joined, call and ask what resources, and for the sake of this episode, what grant opportunities they have available to members. Third on the list is a chamber of commerce. Now, chambers are also a paid option for you to network with other businesses, get resources to grow your business, and find out what grant opportunities are available. Chambers themselves may not always have the money to award you a grant, but they are a good place to find out about what is available before it hits the general public. This option requires a little bit more work since you have to proactively seek out those who would know and stay on top of the opportunities there are. The next two are my number one sources of funding that I've used personally. In my third year of business, we hit a little bit of a slump. Well, no, it was a big slump. And we were struggling real bad. And I had to do something quickly. So I contacted every CPA in my area and asked if they had an email list for their clients. Now, I wasn't a client, but I inquired as if I was interested in becoming one. I actually was shopping around for a CPA at the time. I stated that part of my inquiry process was to see how their list helped their clients. The CPA I ended up going with was responsible for 70% of the funding that we have to date. His list is frequent and he consistently shares with his clients the funding opportunities he comes across. Now, because they're in the finance space, they have access to a lot of information that most people won't. So this is a really good idea if you're interested in joining a list and finding out what opportunities are available. Before I even became his client, I had already won a $20K grant just from staying on top of the information his list offered. My number one option is growth capital corporations. When looking for funding, if you're well positioned, they're always looking to fund businesses. I received 2 grants from a growth capital corporation. All you would have to do is look up growth capital corporation or the equivalent in your state to find out which one you can apply for. Pro tip, for these types of organizations, I would say to apply as soon as their applications open. They pretty much fund pretty much everybody who's positioned for funding until they don't have money anymore, so you don't want to be late. Other places that you can look that I won't really go into too much detail about, but I encourage you to look into are community development centers. Development centers like to give away money to businesses that are in underserved communities. So if your business is zoned in an area that is considered underserved, it would be worth looking into. Also, you can look at your state's small business development centers. This is where I've seen workforce training grants come from. So as we wrap up, just a few notes. Money isn't going to fall out of the sky. As a business owner, almost everything you do will be tied to who you know or what you know. So make sure that you're networking and getting yourself in position to hear about these opportunities. When you get in with the right people, you are better positioned. For example, the reason I put Hello Alice at the top of the list as far as like my least favorite is because there's so much competition for these grants. It's a popular site that businesses know about. And the ones at the bottom of my list are very niche, and usually businesses have to do a little bit more legwork to get that funding, but there's less competition, so you're more likely to get funding in the end. Also, the reason why the opportunities at the bottom of the list, even though they are my favorite, are the best ones is because you get the added bonus of having built-in relationships via networking that will serve you time and time again. You may not know how, but they always will. So definitely try to get those opportunities, try to use those, even though they're more involved. I know I've said a lot, but I don't want anyone to discount the importance of using these channels and getting awarded a grant. If you have additional questions, please let me know. I leave my email in the description for every episode. We are launching our own 20K growth grant at the end of the year. We want to make sure that your questions are answered about our grant, but also for any grant that you may be applying for. Also, in a few weeks, we're launching a micro course that will help you write a winning grant proposal. The course also comes with our winning grant proposal template. This is a template that I've personally used over the years. It also comes with an Excel sheet that will allow you to do your projections right from the Excel document. So once you plug in your numbers for your product, your services, and your expenses, it will shoot out 3-year and 5-year projections for you. I'll also be including a list of major cities and states that have links to the top funding sources. So you go through the list, pick your state, and look at the state side, city side, county side organizations, and put yourself in position to make sure that you're getting funded from them too. And as well as you'll be on our mailing list. So whenever we get a grant update, you will get that email immediately, because remember, that is how you know, whenever you put yourself in position to know. So that's pretty much that. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us at mentalmoney.me@gmail.com. That is the best way to get your questions answered. If enough of the same questions come in, I'm going to make an entire podcast episode about it. But that is pretty much how you get funded. That's how you get money. You need to be looking in the right places, networking with the right people. Don't hesitate to sign up to different sites, association, chambers, and put yourself out there. But you also need to make sure that your company is positioned to do that. I'm just doing a quick recap. Make sure that your company is positioned to do that, because if you don't have your ducks in order, or if you don't have your ducks in a row, rather, when it comes time to submitting these applications, it's going to be so much more difficult, scrambling for papers and certificates of good standing and all the other docs. So make sure that you have those regularly updated and that you are operating cleanly anyway. Also, one more thing. Your operating agreement. Some companies want that as well. So just be sure to stay on top of these things. And if you have any questions along your application journey, I'm very active on social media. Please do not hesitate to reach out. We're mentalmoney.me on Instagram and Mental Money Podcast on TikTok. I'm going to be providing a lot more content about this as we start to promote our growth grant over the next couple weeks. So I'll be around. Get your questions answered, and remember to apply for our growth grant, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities, even if you don't win the grant, that will come about. So until next episode, I wish you the best. Happy funding. Thank you so much for listening to the Mental Money Podcast. Please go ahead and remember to subscribe, but don't hoard all of this good information for yourself. Share this information with someone that you know could use it, especially if they need a shift in their mindset, or someone who would love to have more money. So until we meet again, remember, like Uncle Snoop said, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind.